Okay, because I wasn't going to. I did second every now and then, I thought maybe it wasn't. No, okay.
I like other people to talk.
I was gonna have you. Okay.
Okay, gang.
Sometimes, like there's a lull, it's like.
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that's good.
okay.
We can start from.
Okay. I'd like to call the meeting to order and have the clerk lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. If we could have a motion and a second that the agenda for the September 22nd, 2015 board meeting be approved as submitted.
Second.
Those in favor? Aye. Thank you. If we could have a motion that the board approve the following consent agenda.
Second.
Any questions on the consent agenda? Those in favor? Aye. 7 in favor. Special reports? Do we have any special reports tonight? Nothing tonight, okay. Visitor speaking time. Do we have anyone that wishes to address the board that has signed up? Okay. Welcome to our visitors, or visitor. Thank you for coming. Aubrey, your
Hi.
chance to tell us all about Spirit Week and everything that's going on. I've seen a lot of crazy costumes come out of my house this week. And in particular interest to me was yesterday was Twin Day. So
Yeah,
I have two that could not agree on anything that they would wear to look like twins, so they dressed up as each other. And they did not go to classes as each other, but they had several, I mean, they do dress differently, as you may know,
Yeah.
and it was almost comical, they said, the way they did it. So tell us all about it.
Yes, so we're in the midst of homecoming week, and yesterday was Twin Day, and today was Cartoon Day, and if you're walking down the hallway, you saw a lot of Minions. And there was a cool one that some seniors did where one was dressed up as Pac-Man and the rest were ghosts, and they were chasing the Pac-Man down the hallway.
Cool.
So tomorrow is like in the past days, so the seniors will be dressing up as cavemen, juniors will be Wild West, sophomores are Egyptian, and the freshmen are medieval. And then Thursday is Penfield Pride Day, and Friday is Class Color Day, where the seniors are black, juniors are white, sophomores are red, and freshmen are gray. And then that Friday will be the day of our pep rally. And following the pep rally that Friday from 4 to 6:30, there will be a carnival held here on school grounds for the elementary school kids and the middle school kids, because we're hoping to make homecoming more of a town event now, because it's kind of moved towards being solely high school. So we kind of want to bring everyone into that. And then the high schoolers will be running the games, and we've got that all figured out. And then, so far in homecoming week, the seniors are in the lead with 10 points. The freshmen have 8, the juniors have 5, and the sophomores have 3. And so on Friday, field hockey beat Eastridge 3-1, and girls soccer beat Brockport 1-0 yesterday, and also boys volleyball swept Brockport and won in all 3 sets yesterday. And then, so this Friday at 7:30 is the boys' homecoming soccer game under the lights. Saturday at 2 is football, and then that is followed by girls soccer and then field hockey. And on October 3rd, Penfield girls tennis will be having a car wash from 10 to 2 at Fast Track. So we're looking forward to the end of the week. It's my favorite week of high school, so it's very exciting.
All right, any questions? Yes, Barb?
I just have a comment that I went to the Cobbles PTA meeting last Thursday, and Mr. Bavis announced about the opportunity to come up here for everybody, and the parents that were there were very excited that they were being included in the homecoming, so just wanted to let you know.
Great. Any other questions? Thank you, Aubrey, and hopefully many of the board members will come out Friday afternoon if we can, get away from our busy schedules. Just if you haven't been there, it's amazing to watch, and the tug of war in particular. If the seniors lose, it's a big moral victory for somebody else. So thank you very much. Superintendent's report, Dr. Putnam.
Sure, we have some reports tonight. We're going to do our typical student and staff honors. I have a very brief technology plan update, and when we get there, you'll know why it's very brief. Dr. Sansucci is going to speak about the Windsor Ridge subdivision, and then I'll talk about the field lights update. We have some exciting news about homecoming and what it means for our lit fields. And I'll just mention that the Putnam children are very excited to go to the carnival, so they have each invited a friend. And I would like to apologize now for any behavior that they have, because Friday after school, you never know. But they're very, very excited, especially the little kids at all the elementary schools. When they see the seniors, you sort of are like demigods to the little kids. They look up to you. They want to be Penfield Patriots when they get to the high school too. So it's kind of neat, and I hope the carnival works, and I hope it sort of builds, because that would be great. I have some of these student and staff updates, and we do this every year, but I don't have all the names because we would spend an hour reading them. But all of the student names for these AP Scholar Awards I'm going to mention are in the agenda, the full agenda that can be found online too. But Penfield High School students in 2015 graduates have been named as AP Scholars based on their exceptional achievement on AP exams, advanced placement exams. And so we had 9 high school students and graduates, so these are kids who are currently in high school or had graduated last year, that earned, so 9 students earned an average score of at least a 4 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 4 or higher on 8 or more of these exams. AP Scholar with Distinction, we had 39 high school students and graduates who earned an average score of at least 3.5 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 5 or more of these exams. AP Scholar with Honor Award, 29 more students and graduates who earned an average score of at least a 3.25 on all AP exams taken, and scores of 3 or higher on 4 or more of these exams. And the AP Scholar Award, which is an additional 55 PHS students and graduates who completed 3 or more AP examinations with scores of 3 or higher. And so just really a proud moment of the number of students here who will be honored as well come the end of the year at our honors convocation that celebrate their hard work. And to continue on with some amazing students is we have 2 National Merit semifinalists, and that would be Nick LeHue and Alan Liu have been named semifinalists in the National Merit Scholarship Competition. And this is where it gets impressive when you take a look at the numbers. They were among 16,000 semifinalists, which sounds like a lot until you realize that they were selected from over 1.5 million juniors who took the qualifying exam last year. And they're now moving on to compete for one of 7,400 National Merit Scholarships, which is just, this is nationwide. It's just absolutely amazing. And we've got 2 of those wonderful kids here in Penfield, so I wanted to celebrate them. We have Nancy Bradstreet, who is always an honored guest at our board meetings, who sits out there, but she doesn't have a choice. I make her come. And Nancy Bradstreet, I want to mention, is the Director of our Communications here. If you are following Facebook and Twitter, she's now the one posting much of that. And she's been named the winner of an award in the photograph category of the New York State Public Relations Association's annual communication contest. The photo titled Touching Moment was taken at the district's 2015 Buddy Olympics this last June, and was selected for recognition out of more than 345 contest entries submitted this year. And Nancy has won previous New York State School Public Relations Association awards in the district newsletter category, the website category, photograph category, and annual report category. And you can see a picture there. It is with Mark Nelson, the principal of Harris Hill, and one of his students, both very happy and truly a touching moment. So if we could, because she is here, if we could give Nancy a round of applause, it would be great. And I wanted to mention, I'm sorry, but Aubrey had mentioned Twin Day and some great costumes. So if you want to see the Pac-Man costume that she mentioned, if you go to the district Facebook page, you will see all of those pictures. Each day we are posting pictures from the high school of the dress-up days. And so you can get that from our homepage down on the right-hand side, like us on Facebook, and you can go and see those pictures. And so thanks to Nancy for that, too. Maybe that one will win an award next year. That's staff and student updates. I'm going to do the technology plan update as well. Ed Turkowski, our Director of Technology, our plan was to have him here to present the technology plan, which had not been approved as of yesterday. It is approved now. It's sort of a tentatively approved, so we're going to bring him back in October to run through with the Board of Education where the technology plan is. So just a little one slide to update and remind you, Mr. Turkowski was here in August and presented on the technology plan. And districts in New York State are required to have an approved technology plan. Our initial plan was approved by BOCES as of this morning, and we are still working on finalizing the document. We can still make some changes, and the board had some great suggestions and ideas, and Mr. Turkowski has made some tweaks based on those comments. And any significant change moving forward will need to be reviewed by BOCES for approval, but the minor changes they've sort of given us the okay with. And the Director of Technology, Ed Turkowski, will be here in October to present the final document to the Board of Education and take any questions or insights as well. Questions on technology?
Board members, any questions? It was a comprehensive plan that, very complex, as you know, and we take that stuff very seriously, as we all know in today's era. But do we have any questions, or do we want to think about questions to ask Ed? What's your pleasure? Anything tonight? Nothing? Okay, thank you.
I will turn it over now to Dr. Sansucci to talk about the Windsor Ridge subdivision.
Thank you. This is in follow-up, in part, to our last board meeting 2 weeks ago, where we had some initial conversation about this, but we've learned more, and I'd like to thank Catherine for sort of giving us an early heads up on some of this. But essentially, there is a development proposed and working its way through the town planning board process right now that's unusual, I think, in recent history for Penfield. So over the course of the last number of years, we certainly have development, and but in recent years, at least, they've been smaller, 11 homes, sort of infill developments and so forth. This image is a Google Earth image of the intersection of 5 Mile Line Road and Atlantic Avenue. So just down from the district office, and the parcel in question is that large open field on the northwest corner. That's being proposed for development right now and is working its way through the process. So it's currently under review. That's a 43-acre site, and what is proposed is an 86-lot Ryan home development on that site. I'll show you a footprint plan of the site in just a moment, but essentially, once approved, it would move forward in 6 phases of about 15 homes each. So they develop the site as sites were sold and completed, they'd move on from phase to phase to phase, and the development would build out essentially just as quickly as the market could bear. I understand that this is hard to read for you, but we can get you the actual plan. And essentially what it shows is a loop into that 43-acre site with 2 entrances on 5 Mile Line Road. And the shaded area is on the lower left corner, which would be the south east corner. That would be the first homes that are developed. That's the first 15, and then they would build around the loop to the other side. Understand that at this point there's some controversy about that. There certainly traffic is a consideration at that corner. Those of you that have traveled through that intersection know that it can be difficult and traffic stacks in both directions. Also, I think there's some concerns or as I understand it, they're working their way through some concerns about 2 curb cuts onto 5 Mile Line Road. The north-south, that north-south road is, 5 Mile Line is county road, so they would require county approval. The east-west road, Atlantic Avenue, state approval, so DOT would have to approve. And my understanding at this point is that neither one is anxious for two entranceways that close to that intersection. So I think that'll need to be worked out. But again, it is moving forward, and we're going to it will have some impacts on us. So what are those potential impacts? Based on similar developments, we would estimate about 1.5 children per home. That's not a guarantee, obviously, but these homes are going to be priced, as I understand it, sort of in the $270,000 to $300,000 range. So certainly that's, achievable for families, and we'd expect it to be attractive to folks with kids. That's currently, that entire parcel is currently in the Scribner subdistrict. It does border Cobbles. Those of you that have seen the big map of our sort of chaotic sub-district design, it does border Cobbles. It could be split between Cobbles. We would have to make that decision. It could be split between Cobbles and Scribner, but there's some challenges about that as well that we need to talk about. So, in terms of a schedule, this is based on conversations that I've had with the town. It's not guaranteed. It's not for sure by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a reasonable best guess. So they would estimate approval sometime in midwinter, which would mean that the contractor would start work on utilities and infrastructure in the spring. That means they need to put in their underground work, sewer, power, curbing, roads, all of that. But once that's completed, they can begin to sell homes and build the homes. Ryan takes between 90 and 120 days to build a house, so once they start going, it will happen fairly quickly. And we'd expect to see, based on that schedule, really the first impacts beginning in potentially in October of 2016. Obviously not all 129 kids are going to come all at once. They're not going to come in neat packages of kindergarten or first or third grade. And they'll come also with potentially with brothers and sisters in middle school or high school. So it's going to have really a K-12 impact. But obviously our immediate concern is at the elementary school. With nothing changed, Scribner is currently our most populous, our largest, and our tightest elementary school. There's currently 544 students in Scribner. Cobbles is second at 479, and you see the other numbers. We've already pushed into Bay Trail over the course of the last couple of years. On the very border of the connection, we've converted the available rooms to allow for that growth. Cobbles, we've converted a computer lab to a classroom, and essentially it's fair to say that without program changes, without changing the way we deliver program, we're out of space at those elementary schools. So in that regard, it's perhaps good, I think, that this development is at Scribner. We, at the last board meeting, not knowing about this, we were having a conversation about our ongoing 5-year planning process, and we had expansions at the elementary schools just to relieve the existing load in phase 2. Obviously, we're going to have conversations about how does that make sense. Is it not phase 2? Is it phase 1? If it's phase 1, what does that look like? But there's lots of conversation that needs to happen there. Because if you think about it, you've heard me say, and you know it to be true from your own experience, that for us to do a construction project is really a 3-year process. And for additions of this kind, if we decided tonight what we wanted to do, by the time we have a vote, get through an 11-month approval, 11 or 12-month approval process at SED, bid, and so on, it's really 3 years before you can open a door. So this is going to come a lot faster than that. Bay Trail and Scribner's connection to Bay Trail is going to have to be, I think, part of our plan around that. We're going to have to use classes in Bay Trail. That's going to mean marching kids back and forth. We haven't worked out those details. We don't quite tonight know what that means. We're going to be having lots of conversation about that. But that's going to be the challenge. Over time, though, it's probably one of the conversations the planning committee is going to have, the facilities planning committee is going to have, and then the board as well, is that can't be Scribner. Or can it be? If we had 129 kids to Scribner, and even if we could build that space there, does it make sense to us as a district that one of our elementary schools would be 700 students and the others would be much smaller? Certainly it's possible, but our tradition has been that we've tried to keep those elementary schools about the same size. So that, what the attendance zones are and the sub-districts are also going to be, that whole conversation is going to be forced by this development. So you see the questions at the bottom: new classroom space, redistricting, other, that whole piece is not going to be a conversation that we're going to be able to put off. And we're going to have it fairly expeditiously, because we need to make those decisions in advance of being able to make some choices around what we would offer to the public in terms of the capital component of this. We're probably in as good a shape as could be for this because of the work that's already been done by the facilities committee. So that committee's already looked at footprints of the buildings, talked about where additions could be. So a lot of that work has been done, but certainly not in the level of detail that's going to be required, and not with this kind of information at hand. So I just wanted to update the board of that. That's where we're at. Again, the project itself is still working its way through planning. I believe there's a meeting this week where they'll continue to have conversations with the contractor, but we are going to be seeing some changes in our elementary schools in the very near future.
Board members, any questions for Mark? Mark?
Mark, as far as you talked about the estimate of students, and we expect that to be fairly evenly distributed amongst the different grades, so we can have an estimate of how many of those would be essentially elementary school students.
Yeah, I had a brief conversation with Dr. Seversky about this, because I wanted to talk about the 1.5 student. Does that make sense? And I'll want to loop back to that conversation a little bit. Because while I expect it will be somewhat evenly distributed, I do tend to think that it will be concentrated more in the primary grades. Families, young couples get married somewhere else. They might own a home somewhere else, but when those first children start to come and school becomes very important, I think it's fair to say that we're a school of choice on the east side. We're very attractive. These homes are going to be in a good price point. So I think and those family choices happen around kindergarten, first grade. So I don't have data around that, and that's what I'd really like to have. I'd like to be able to do a little bit of research on that, but my instinct is that we're going to be looking at kindergarten, first and second grade a little bit more than we are third and fourth and fifth and sixth grade.
Another question.
Go ahead.
Does Ryan have a pattern of how they build out? I mean, do they build at the rate of sales, maintain a certain number of spec homes under construction, or do they say we're going to build this many houses this year and just have them all up there? Do we know how that's going to evolve out?
I'm not an expert in this, but my understanding is that they sell the house and then build it to order. You have certain options that you can make in the choice of your home, so they build them as they sell them. They don't tend to build on spec. They don't put up houses without a buyer. They're working to sell, and as folks make their choice, they have certain variations on the home that they can choose, and Ryan builds to suit.
So the market will drive the pace of the build-out?
Correct,
Okay.
correct. And, the giant overriding variable in all of this, although I don't think that it's going to happen too much in the near term, is this depends very much on what happens with interest rates in the market. If interest rates start to creep up, some of this may slow down a little bit, but I don't think, at least in particular with this subdivision, this is on our doorstep at this point. I don't think those kind of changes are going to happen fast enough to make a significant difference here. But over a long course of time, it'll be something we'll have to consider.
And one last question, how far has the town progressed on the review of this plan? I mean, how many more meetings do they have? How close are they to making a final decision?
As I say, they have questions. They are working their way through the planning process. They're not asking for any zone. It is zoned correctly for this, so they're not asking for any changes to zoning. So really, it's just a matter of working through a plan that meets the needs of the town with regard to curb, the access to the roads and so on. We have sent, I neglected to mention, Dr. Putnam mailed a letter to the town planning board earlier this week that expresses some of our challenges and concerns around this. As I understand it in the community, that one of the and we know this as well, one of the major challenges that this development's going to propose has to do with traffic at that intersection. It's 5 Mile Line Road. It's already fairly congested. Certainly when we add buses to that and the homeowners coming and going, it's only going to make it worse. And what I understand is that there's no plan to add turn lanes or to redesign that intersection for at least about the next 5 years. So that may need to be worked through, but I can't speak to their process about it.
Right, thank you.
Barb?
My only curiosity about this is the reason why there is no exit to Baird is because there's houses that exist, I believe, on the Baird piece that would back up. I'm sorry, Atlantic.
Atlantic, yes, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's right.
Baird gets in there. Because to me, it would make more sense to have an exit as well out to Atlantic in the back. But there are houses that go all the way around there.
On the,
Up into that next new development that's.
probably can see them on the
Yep,
right.
yep, there they are. So that's probably why they're going with 2 exits out into 5 Mile. As well as I do recall that there was always an issue with the fire department and emergency personnel needing to have 2 accesses.
2 entrances. I understand that's a consideration.
Right,
yes.
right. But there's no way that you can exit onto Atlantic Avenue because the other exit would be that curve, and that would become Dead Man's Curve there. So,
Yeah, and right now, the stacking occurs, not just stacking being the people waiting to turn, not just at this intersection, but further down at Scribner, for our buses.
Right,
Our buses traveling west, we have to allow additional time, just because traffic backs up
Right.
almost to this intersection
Right.
going that way. So, that's only, that'll get worse.
wow.
And Lisa, yes.
I think you talked about this once before, but isn't there some trend data about families moving within Penfield? So we're going to have, I think it's going to impact a lot of schools, because if families have a smaller home in Penfield, then they move to a bigger home here. See what I'm saying? So then it is impacting not just maybe Scribner, but they got a middle schooler and whatever, and then little kids are moving out to some of those outlying or neighborhoods.
Right, I do think there's going to be a K-12 impact. There's, just for us, even if, as I say, all of these, it will impact every elementary school, certainly, because just even if all the new kids, if you will, and the new families arrive just in this subdivision, we're going to need to make changes to be able to accommodate them, which is going to mean moving attendance zones around in all the elementary schools. So we know that has challenges. Folks love their elementary school. So,
Anybody else, any questions? Carol?
Does the town usually contact the school district to say, hey, heads up, here's what's going on?
They have in the past. Unfortunately, we didn't get a heads up about this. We may have gotten the postcard that they mail out, but it didn't find its way to us. So it happened, I think, for the town fairly quickly as well. And as I said, we're not really in the mode of these bigger developments. We've had conversations with them about that, and we've talked about how that should work. And they're committed to cooperating with us. They certainly understand the impacts to us. So we're going to work to make sure that we work together as we go forward.
Just if I can, because that's Mark's right. I know Mark spoke directly to Mark Valentine, who
Yes.
is the residential
He's
engineer.
the town engineer who's responsible for
And then
this.
prior to sending a letter to Mark Valentine and copying Tony LaFountain, I called Tony directly to have a conversation. So just wanted to second Mark's comment, which is that they are, obviously working with us. They very much accepted the letter around our concerns around basically building capacity, student enrollment, and traffic concerns. And so I do think the conversation that Mark Sansucci had with Mark Valentine and the letter hopefully helps. It's a good problem to have as a school district to have people moving in. It's just timing wise. We just had a board meeting where we talked about the space and class sizes increasing and trying to work through that. And obviously the board's committed to trying to keep class size down, but we need to put kids somewhere. And so it's a good problem to have, but it's definitely something, as Mark said, we've got to really dig deep into and find out what we're going to do.
And we're going to have to make those decisions. This puts, we were working through a methodical process. Now we've got some urgency. We're going to need to sort of turn up the heat a little bit.
Catherine?
Mark, the 1.5 children per home estimate, is that like a standard formula, or do you have a specific way of coming to that conclusion or that estimation?
No, as I said, I had some conversation with Dr. Seversky around
Yeah.
that, and it's more of a rule of thumb. There's no
Okay.
magic about that in particular, but based on this price point and where we see those kinds of houses, it seemed reasonable to me, and so we're going with that for this time.
I mean, we might even start at that point, though, and then the families get bigger.
Oh, certainly.
Yeah, so.
Sure.
So this is, when you estimate something like that, do you always estimate as a starting point or just overall average? Is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, really, it's just a number so that we have
Something
at
to
this
work
point
with.
early on, some
Yeah.
way of getting our heads around it.
Okay.
It's 4 acres and it's a big development. What does that mean? 129 kids, and that gives us a starting spot. Is that a perfect number? I'm sure it's not.
Okay.
But it's just a number that we can start a reasonable number, I think a very reasonable number, that we can start to think about and plan around. Our planning is going to have to accommodate, some room. Obviously, we can't plan just for that development. As I say, it takes 3 years to build a classroom. So we need to be forward-thinking, think about where else some other development have those kinds of conversations with the town, look at what our enrollment patterns look like, look at our long-term projections, and try and make some rational decisions. But as I say, in the near term, at least in the next 3 years, as we try and move forward to do something about this, really our best, probably immediate plan will be to take over class space, crunch up people and a little more make what changes we have to in Bay Trail. And then, that's going to have some staffing implications as we think about how do we get kids back and forth between the two buildings. There's just a lot to think about.
Right, okay, all right, thanks.
Anybody else? Just my own comments, having had a little bit of a background in this. When they're going to be smack in the middle of the median price range for Penfield. So generally, you're looking at 4-bedroom, 2.5 bath and usually you tend to have 2 kids when that comes about, but, I think it's just an average as you look at. The other comment about the financing, Ryan's a huge East Coast builder, so they buy their financing. If you get their financing, that's all they want you to do. So, and then the first 15 homes, or maybe the first 30, will get all the extra upgrades for free, and so that drives the people into the subdivision. But I know our district map looks like a congressional redistricting map, but once the first person moves in there, we lose any opportunity of adjusting this whole subdivision as a whole, correct?
Well, no. You can always, other districts and some neighboring districts of ours are in the habit of, or it is in their culture that they will move you in your elementary school. I have to say it's not in our culture. And so it's not impossible, but it's unlikely. So yeah, I think we would need to have some early conversations about what we would do in terms of that. Because once folks enter an elementary school, I'm guilty of it. I've had conversations with we all love our elementary school. My elementary school is the best elementary school. And while we all, and while we know all our schools are fine schools, getting over that is very difficult. So the time to make those choices is before people buy in.
Yeah, because I think, neighborhoods are neighborhoods, and the kids and friends, and everybody wants to go to the same school. So it's just something we ought to think about, if indeed we're thinking about that down the road, because you could certainly you just don't want to break it up because it just creates more problems, as we all know. So go ahead, Mark.
There's a question. We haven't had to make this kind of decision. Who is involved in deciding what elementary school that neighborhood would go to? Is it the board?
It's a board's choice. It's a board decision. Certainly, we'd want to have lots of, and that's part of the timing challenge. Is I would expect that the board would want to have lots of public conversation and dialogue and hear folks' opinions, and that takes time. So, and that's become a very limited resource at this point. But elementary school, the sub-district zoning is a board's choice.
And my comment was it's just somewhat easier when the houses are empty to make that decision. So, the other thing, Mark, if you heard any updates on all the apartment complexes on Penfield Road, that seems to have no construction action going on.
I asked about that the other day. I need to follow up. I have not had an update. There doesn't seem to be anything moving forward with that.
That was like 200 apartments.
Correct.
Upscale.
Upscale. We weren't anticipating, based on our conversations with both the town and the developer, we weren't really expecting a lot of families out of that development because they were higher priced and smaller. They weren't the 3-bedroom kind of units, 4-bedroom kind of units, but there's been nothing happening with regard to it. So
And that's another one where the market dictates, because what may be renting at $2,000, if no one's paying that amount, all of a sudden it's $1,500, and you do have families or others moving in. So
sure.
great. Well, thank you, Mark. That's great. Yes.
Whereabouts are these apartment complexes?
As you go down Penfield Road, you can see some construction right before you go to Panorama Plaza coming from the Brighton side.
Yes.
On the left, there's a driveway there, and there's when they did the road, they piled some stuff.
Correct.
And it's all back there, and then there was a plan for, on the lake, I can't remember, Dolomite Lake or whatever they call it, to have a multi-retail area down there, which I know there was groups out there kind of in resistance to that. So that's on the other side of the old Penfield Road.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Okay, how about the field light updates?
Yes. So we have field lights project update. So just a couple of photos to get us ready and excited for the first official game under the lights this weekend. But you can see we start here where we really started drilling holes and taking a look. And we see the poles going up here. And if you've looked out there behind the high school, you'll see they are large, and they definitely stand out. But I did take some pictures yesterday at the girls' varsity soccer game, and they look good. It fits the field, in my opinion. Actually, this is some of the pictures I took. Nancy put together the PowerPoint, and you can see the lights there in front of our very proud Penfield Patriots sign of all of our state and sectional championships. That's the field itself. So the score was still 0-0 when I took this picture, but you can see this is you're standing behind the high school, staring out at the field. And so you can see the turf field with the lights, and then if you look far in the background, you can see two other sets of lights, which are on the far side of either referred to as the grass field or the upper field, where typically the JV team will play. We did have some questions around. We feel very good. We got the green light that we would have lights on Friday night for the for the boys varsity soccer game. We did not know if we would have lights on the upper field for any of the JV games, but we got the green light on Monday morning that they were going to be good to go as well. So we'll have lights on both fields for this weekend. There will be some, if you remember in the project, there are some lights along the walkway, the pathway that goes from the high school parking lot to the community center. Those are early October. They're looking at early October to finish those up, but we're still going to have our ribbon cutting and get started with these lights.
There's also going to be some site restoration.
Yes.
So, they had to do lots of trenching and so on, and that's not, it'll be safe, but it's not reseeded, it's not cleaned up. But the goal for everyone was to get them up on time for this game, so.
I didn't feel comfortable saying we weren't going to have our ribbon cutting light game because the house was a little dirty. So, but there is definitely some cleanup you will see that needs to get done, but it won't impact the players, and again, the safety piece is there. So just, it is out on the district webpage, and if you follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook, you will also see this, and it's the ribbon cutting celebration. So Friday night, this Friday at 7 p.m., prior to the boys varsity soccer game, is the first official game under the lights for Penfield Central ever, and we will be there. We've invited some local dignitaries as well as the board and district office to be there and cut the ribbon and sort of bring in the new world of lit games for Penfield Central. And then on Saturday, because who doesn't like a second ribbon cutting, we are going to do it again before the homecoming game. That's a 2 p.m. football game, the boys varsity football, and we will again do a little ribbon cutting. Some of the same people will be there, some different people will be there, but again, just to be able to celebrate and sort of kick off the new season. So just really excited about that. He doesn't know I'm going to say it, but I do want to just make a comment that I think is really important for the community and for the board is that, we have a new assistant superintendent for HR, for labor relations. We have a new superintendent. We have a new, relatively new assistant superintendent for instruction. But Dr. Sansucci has been here from the beginning conversations of Field Lights to the ribbon cutting celebration. And these opportunities don't happen in a vacuum, nor do they happen as easily as let's just submit the plans and then we'll just wait until they're built and everything went smoothly. There were pitfalls and challenges and decisions and more pitfalls and SED not approving anything. And I want to give public kudos to Dr. Sansucci because he rode through all that as a champ and really kept the district moving forward when there was changes. And I think that's just incredible, and the lights wouldn't be as quick and wouldn't be there without Dr. Sansucci's work. So thank you very much, Dr. Sansucci, for all the work you did around that.
Thank you for the kind words.
Thank you. Questions? And you want everyone from here to be there earlier, correct? About quarter to 7 and quarter to 2?
About 6:30 we said to
Okay.
be there, said to be about 6:30. We do know parking, especially on Saturday, is very crowded, and because of the carnival on Friday from 4 to 6 for the elementary age and middle school students, we do believe there'll be some traffic as well. So if you could plan to be there about a half hour before each of those events, that would be great.
Barb?
Just curious, there's been no phone calls to the district from neighbors saying anything about the lights being tall or
None at all.
obstructing?
And none
Stars.
complaining about them on, because we haven't, while we swear they're going to be on for the game, they haven't been turned on yet. So there was power was off here at the high school briefly as they were making final connections, so, but construction is just always a race to the water hole.
Right,
And
right.
if they have until Friday, it'll take until Friday, so.
Well, okay, that's a positive then. Thank
That
you.
is, just that other piece is
But-
regards
but-
to the community has been very supportive
They
in
have
that
been.
neighborhood. When we had our meetings 2 years ago, there was concern that a lot of neighbors would come out concerned. And instead, while we did have some concerns, I think we worked through those. The district did a nice job, really through the leadership of Dr. Sansucci at the time. And I think we've had nothing but positives so far, which has been, there hasn't been a phone call, and
There has not been.
we'll work with folks. And I'm really excited because of that work with the Musco lights around the, I'm going to forget the term, but around where the lighting sort of ends, like it doesn't have that.
I also forget the term, but
The residual sort of lighting piece. and-
right, the light that spills off of the site essentially will be, because we've had night games before, but with the, the floodlights,
Yeah.
that you see, the construction lights that you see along the freeway, and they're pretty noisy and messy in terms of the light that they just sort of light up the world. This should be better than that. This will be better than that, in addition to being better quality light. So, we believe we can continue to be good neighbors with this. We got a lot of support from the community. We're having lots of conversation with Mr. Shambo, and the policy committee is going to be seeing some policy in the future about, because we want to make sure we attend to what does it mean to be a good neighbor. So it's not just the lights, but music, and when do we turn them on and off, and how many games a year, and all of that. We made commitments and promises during the run-up to construction. We're committed to maintaining those promises and making sure that we can be good neighbors for the folks that supported us, so.
And Barb, you'll hear from the neighbors if there are any issues with your proximity, so we'll look forward to hearing from you if there are any.
I'm anticipating my phone ringing, but hopefully not, because it's more about the noise, I think, than the lights.
I agree.
Yeah, and you can always send those folks to me. I'm always happy to talk to the community about the concerns they have. And the noise is something, just as a reminder, with the pep rally, we typically will get a phone call or two, or the town may, because of the noise for the pep rally. But when you put close to 1,500 kids students in a stadium, and they're cheering as loud, it's tough. But that school spirit is very, it's contagious. So, yeah.
Okay. Carol, you had a question?
Yes, speaking of the parking lot, there's some digging in that parking lot. So what is that? Kind of starts like towards the stadium and stops towards the auditorium, like right where the cars are supposed to be parked. Do you know why? And will that be filled up by Saturday? so that
It'll
no
be
one falls in?
safe. I'm not sure exactly where you're referencing, but obviously they had to trench back towards the building to make connections. There's a new transformer and switchgear that's associated with this, so there was lots of trenching, and I suspect that's what you're referring to. So it'll be filled in, might not be blacktopped, might not be, but
Okay.
it'll be safe.
Okay, I guess I noticed it then because there were no cars here. I was like, wow, what is that? Okay, all right, that makes sense. Thank you.
Anybody else? This is probably a strange question, but I guess we refer to one field as the turf field, and the
Right.
other as the grass field.
Right.
And now we've dressed up these fields, and wouldn't it make sense to have one called like Patriot Red and the other Patriot Black, or something like that? A real name is all I'm thinking, doesn't have to be that, but, when we go out to Victor, it's named after someone. I'm not saying we should name it after the board or anything like that, but more about us and Patriot, that type of thing. So it's just a thought. I mean, signage would look a little bit better than field number one. I don't even know what we say it is. 1 and 2.
It's the turf field. and
Yeah,
the grass
turf
field.
and grass. And some people think turf is grass, from the Brighton side of the district.
Sure.
But Okay, that's
No,
just a
Duly
thought.
noted, I wrote it down. I
Great,
think it's something
okay.
we can definitely take a look at as we're continuing to build. As you've seen, a lot of new signs around. I shared with the board some pictures. If you drive into High School Drive now to come to the high school, you'll see some new signage on which way to turn. You'll see those popping up around the district in the larger schools where there are multiple ways to go when you pull in. As small as the sign you saw in the one picture where the state champions are marked. Again, that sort of branding of that Penfield Patriots name, and so you saw the new signs in front of the school. So I think it's a duly noted idea as we take a look at continuing to start to build our brand as Penfield. The one I want to add too, and it sort of reminded me, is if you go to the district homepage and if you go to either Facebook or Twitter and look at the ribbon cutting celebration, there is a link to a expectations for spectators, players, or really spectators and students at the game, including adults, including alumni, and it's just a reminder of sort of what our expectations are, especially at a night game. It is a new world we walk into with a night game, with new problems and new wonderful things. So just as a reminder, if you are interested, and we encourage folks to take a look at that, so we focus on the positive celebrations of the game and stay away from negativity, and we stay focused on sort of how we can celebrate being a Penfield Patriot in a positive manner. And so I really, the students know it because they've lived it and they know what the school rules are and they know expectations, but we want to share with spectators on what our expectations are too, because it still is a public school event. So all public school rules apply for these events. It is not the Buffalo Bills tailgating that we're talking about. This is a high school game with high school students K-12. So it's a G to PG rated event. So as with all of that.
This will be a great event for our community.
Absolutely.
So, well, maybe Nancy has an idea about the Patriot Red and Patriot Black. She's our expert on communications, so.
She always grumbles after the board meeting.
Yes.
I come back the next day with homework.
Okay, we're on page 3 of the agenda, facilities. Amendment to contract with campus construction. At the January 28th, 2014 board meeting, the board approved a contract in the amount of $489,000 with campus construction management services for the following capital projects: Scribner Entrance Bay Trail Electric, Scribner Roofing Bay Trail Gym, athletics and field lighting, security improvements, and the Indian Landing emergency sewer replacement. This contract was based on anticipated substantial completion date for all phases of November 15th, with work completed by January of 2016. The extended project approval schedule and associated work delays have extended the schedule and necessitated additional work. Accordingly, campus has requested an adjustment to the contract of $6,760 to cover inflation and additional costs associated with the delayed schedule. Additionally, the existing contract needs to be amended to include fees of $2,885,200 capital project approved May 19th, 2015 by the voters. This project includes roofing at Harris Hill, Scribner and Bay Trail, as well as data closet cooling system replacement throughout the district, cabinet and counter replacement at Scribner, and exterior door replacements at Indian Landing. The proposed fee is $82,240,000, which is 3.6% of the proposed construction costs. Could I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education authorize an $89,000 amendment to the contract with campus construction as described above?
So moved.
Questions? All those in favor? Aye. Thank you. We have no financial items, but we do have policy review, and we're talking about 5360, and the one below that should be 7420, I believe, is the correct number, rather than 7240. It should be 7420. And whose turn is it tonight?
It's my turn.
Okay.
Thanks. So we have started meeting, the policy committee, and the first thing we did was talk a little bit about what we wanted to accomplish this year. The first thing is we want to come to the conclusion of our 5-year review of the entire policy manual, and we only have 8 policies left in the manual. So we're confident that we'll be able to complete the policy manual review this year. We will also be reviewing there are policies that are required by New York State, that every New York State public school has to have. And we just wanted to do a review and make sure we have every single policy that is required. We know that we comply with all New York State laws, but sometimes we may not have the policy that is actually required. For example, one of the policies that we don't have is one on the district providing a translator for hearing impaired families. If you've been to any events at our schools, you know that we provide those services. We just happen not to have a policy entitled providing translators for hearing impaired families for specific times. So that's a policy that we just are making sure that we have that on the books. There are about 40 of those policies that are required. That'll just take us a little bit of time to get through and make sure that we have all those. The third area we'll be working on is last year the New York State School Board Association recommended some changes to policies. So just as sort of a reality check, we're going to make sure that the changes that NYSBA recommended were changes that made it through the Penfield Policy Manual. And the other thing that we do regularly is just deal with policies that come up as needed. For example, the one that's on the agenda today, 5360, probably came through, because it's in the non-instructional business operation, probably came through Dr. Sansuzi's office. And it's a good example of a policy that we had that had far too much regulation in it. So the specific change that the district wanted to make was that they were changing the form or the vendor that they were using for reporting travel and conference reimbursement. So we moved that language into regulation. Regulation is something that administration can change whenever they want. So the general policy that we're looking at tonight isn't a real change to what we had before. It's just we took regulation out of it. The policy says the board supports employees attending conferences, and therefore they need to be reimbursed for travel and things like that. So all the regulation is moved into into regulation. So that's what's on the table tonight for a first read. And then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Putnam to talk about this next policy, because it's really regulation, which means the board is not the one that writes it or approves it.
Sure. So last year, the New York State Athletic Association, specifically around Section 5, which we belong to, changed the requirements for a student who wanted to do what they call it is modified athletics. So a student who wants to play up. So it's typically a 7th or 8th grader who wants to play at the varsity level. And there is a process at which we have had in our regulation for years, as all schools do, to say this is the process that a student has to go through. And it has to do with basically a physical check, doctor, our district doctor signing off, the nurse signing off, the coach signing off, to make sure that a student who is younger than high school age has the athletic ability and also the sort of social and emotional awareness to play at that upper level. And it's not a huge number of students, but it does happen every year in just about every sport. And so because Section 5 was changing, we had to change. We really didn't have a choice, but it really is a more comprehensive review of the students. And so what we did at the end of the school year last year, if the board recalls, is that you approved a resolution that we would follow that as we reviewed in policy committee, because the change happened pretty quickly and policy committee didn't have time to really dig deep. And then when we did get together in September for the first policy committee of the year, we did really realize that it was regulation, not policy. And so, but because we talked about it last year and the board approved a resolution, we wanted to bring it back to the board meeting to take a look at it, because it really is just an FYI, because it's not official policy, but we are now in compliance with all schools in Section 5 for the process to follow to make sure a student who is playing up is doing so safely. and is approved before they're even doing so. Did that,
Yeah, just a question, is it just Section 5, or is it all of New York State?
all of New York State.
All of New York State, okay.
Yeah, yeah. But Section 5 was the that's the group we work with, so.
Okay.
The regulation 7420 is it replaces, we already have a 7420 regulation 1, this is replacing it. And the travel and conference and regulation has always been there. That change really is, when we looked at it, had been there for years and years and years, and it's all under policy, but as Camille mentioned, it really is a little bit of policy and the rest of it's regulation. The perfect example for that is that we listed in policy how much was the reimbursement rate for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And that is based off of where you stay. It's a state program we use. So the change is, instead of stating it and then having to go and change it every time it changes, we list the official New York State website and say, these are the rates that we reimburse to. And that sort of, just trying to clean it up a little bit for folks. And that came through Jim Pfeiffer's office and reviewed by Dr. Sansucci's office for those changes.
Okay, thank you. Under President's remarks, Mark, did you have an update from the Saturday NISBA meeting at all? Is there anything you'd like to say?
Well, it has not happened yet.
Oh,
so
it's next, this
coming.
Saturday?
It's on the 3rd, actually, so.
Oh, okay,
we've got a little extra
okay.
time. I sent out everyone in sort of my
Right.
review of the proposed resolutions that were out there. And if you have any questions that you want me to take to that meeting, I can certainly do that as well. The other thing is the final guide has come out. So there's new amendments and rebuttals to some of the resolutions. There actually has been an amendment submitted to one of our resolutions. So, please take a look at that. And if you have any questions on those aspects before the meeting on the 3rd, then just let me know.
Okay, and then we'll have you on the agenda after that for our final go-around with it.
Great.
As far as the board. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't believe we have any unfinished business. Under new business, we do have a board meeting schedule change, and in checking dates, we found that the original date, March 15th, we found at least 3 of us were going to be out of town, and we didn't want to take any chances with a 4th, so we thought we'd move that to March 23rd, which is a Wednesday. I know we have a Thursday board meeting in October. We'll have a Wednesday in March, but that was just to be sure we had a quorum and with all the things that go on in the month of March. So if I could have a motion and a second that the Tuesday, March 15, 2016 board meeting be changed to Wednesday, March 23rd, 2016. All those in favor? Thank you. Last piece, I'm sorry, do you have a question? Anybody? No? Okay. Last piece, we talk about our board strategic plan, goals, and objectives, and I know we're meeting, it's early, and probably at our next meeting, we'll bring that document out. I meant to have it for this meeting, and we'll just go over that again to make sure there aren't any questions. But, for our community, this is the charge to our committees, and we have a scorecard that we go by, and we're going to try to adhere to that for our accomplishments. So I've asked Marcia to put that in our next packet, and those of you that can talk about what your task force or group is doing, we'd be glad to see something there. Okay. Okay, any other new business to come before the group? I look for a motion to adjourn at 8:04. That the meeting be adjourned at 8:04.
Second.
All those in favor? Thank you.